Aiden, can you hear me? Oh, little Spicer, where are you? It's the program, Monday, July 14th, 2025, and it's Texas Week. That's right, the week where all of drum corps' eyes and ears and feet are all tuned in to the great state of Texas. I'm Daniel Mathoy Jr. for General Effect Media, and as you can see, my co-host, my partner in crime, is not here, literally. His body is not here, but he is here in spirit, and virtually, he is going to be popping in here and there, in and out, as we cover different topics and such. But I thought, through the magic of television, why don't we have a conversation between Aiden Spicer and myself? Aiden, are you there?
Muy bien, ¿y usted?
Can you hear me? Yes.
All right, I don't know if he's giving me an intro, but what is up, Gem Nation? I'm joining you from an undisclosed location, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be talking about some drum corps today.
Yes, Aiden is on assignment. We'll let him decide to tell you what that actually means. Aiden, did you have a good week? How were sales up at the Chiba Hut based on our glowing shout out and review that we gave last episode?
Yeah, I also agree that Whataburger fell off. I think it really did. And man, I've just been upset ever since, but I think Pizzeries is the goated option for stuff like that.
Right on. And as we mentioned at the beginning, it is Texas Week. How excited are you? What are you looking forward to seeing and hearing this week? Where will you be? Will you be attending any of the Texas shows? Right on. As for me, I will be there live and in person for the San Antonio Regional. I will be there all day. We'll be doing maybe some outside interviews. We'll be doing some interviews in the tunnels itself. And then I will do my best to do some interviews up in the boxes if I can get a sweet air-conditioned box, because why not do some nice interviews up there? So if you see me or you see Aiden, make sure you stop by. We won't be hard to miss, hopefully, if everything goes well. And we'll have the mics ready for your DCI takes. So without out of the way, let's get to it. We start off in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's right. There was a show, DCI Little Rock. It was on Saturday, which is last night as the time of this recording. And we had a number of drum corps there. We had 7 world-class drum corps. We had the Phantom Regiment on top, Carolina Crown in 2nd, Crossman in 3rd, Spirit of Atlanta in 4th, Music City in 5th, Genesis in 6th, and Spartans in 7th. Now, it was a very, very close contest between the Phantom Regiment and Carolina Crown. Phantom scoring an 84.450, Carolina Crown scoring an 84.3. Now, both of us had picked eventually that Carolina Crown would place below Phantom Regiment, but I don't think that we thought it was going to happen this soon. As we'll talk about in a little bit, it happened later in the season last year. And honestly, I thought we wouldn't see it till post San Antonio, but it looks like well, obviously it happened early. Will it continue this way? I can see some jockeying back and forth, especially once we get all the corps together in San Antonio and beyond. But I still stand by that. I think at the very end, Phantom Regiment will prove victorious over the Carolina Crown. As we do, we like to look at the recap, and there's not a whole lot of craziness. Everything was kind of chalky, with the exception of, 3 drum corps. Number 1, the Crossmen Drum and Bugle Corps. They were 3rd overall, but they had some 5th places across the board in visual scores. 5th place in visual proficiency in both subcaptions, 5th place in visual analysis in both subcaptions. So those bringing them down a little bit, especially compared to the other captions that they have and the fact that they got 3rd place. We go to Music City, who scored 5th overall, but were 3rd straight across the board in visual proficiency, visual analysis, and color guard. So where one corps has the weakness, the other corps has the strength. Every other caption for Music City was in that 4, 5, 6 area, but this one was their highest captions. 3 captions scoring in the top 3, way above where they finished overall. And then we get to the Spartans, who again are currently doing a hybrid model of open class and world class, but they're on a world class segment of their tour right now. They did place 7th overall, but they were 5th in percussion in both content and achievement. So yeah, exciting for them. Now, Aiden, did you happen to watch any of this show? Do you have any thoughts? Let's talk about it. What did you think about how Little Rock came out?
It finally happened. I mean, we'll just address the elephant in the room. Phantom Regiment beat Carolina Crown just barely with an 84.45 over an 84.3 from Carolina Crown. I can't say that this wasn't expected. Me and Daniel have been predicting this for, I mean, virtually since the beginning. It happened sooner than I thought it would. I'm going to be honest. I thought the first time we would see a big jump from Phantom Regiment like this would either be at San Antonio or after, not before. So it's definitely something that surprised me when it first came out. All my friends were texting me saying that, oh my God, Phantom Regiment be crowned, Phantom Regiment be crowned. But I love Phantom Regiment show. I also love the Carolina Crown. But yeah, I do think that this is accurate when it comes to all this. And I'm super happy that Phantom Regiment is able to pull this off. And I'm super excited to see what they do next.
Now, obviously, because we've talking about it, the big story of Little Rock is Phantom Regiment placing over Carolina Crown. And if we take a look back at history, at the last 10 times that Phantom beat Carolina Crown head-to-head before last night or before Little Rock, so this doesn't count. Take this out of the equation. This is how it all breaks down. Obviously, last year in finals. Last year in semifinals, all right? Prelims was a different story. You have to go back to the Atlanta regional. Atlanta is when Crown placed below Phantom Regiment. Murfreesboro, Phantom Regiment was over that. And that's when it happened in the summer of 2024, which was July 26th. This episode is coming out on July 14th. The show was July 12th. It was a full 14 days, 2 weeks earlier this year that Phantom Regiment placed over Carolina Crown. So you look at it and go, only 4 contests last year did Phantom Regiment best Carolina Crown. Well, that's had to have happened more often than not, right? No, that is incorrect. Because I said the first time last year was July 26th. You go all the way to June 16th, 2012 in the Akron, Ohio show. It had been 12 years since the Phantom Regiment placed above the Carolina Crown. But that probably happened a lot more beforehand, right? Well, again, the last 10 times. And no surprise, but the last time before that, August 2008, championship week, finals, semis, and prelims, where the Carolina Crown placed below the Phantom Regiment, and then you go back a little further, Allentown in Atlanta. Phantom Regiment flipping the script earlier on Carolina Crown this year. Will it continue? I don't think it's going to be Phantom Regiment chalk all the way to the end, but I think by the end, Phantom Regiment will completely have a firm, comfortable, dare I say, wide lead over Carolina Crown. Let's just say I don't think they're going to finish next to each other, but we'll talk about that later. Now, over the last few episodes, we have talked about the Genesis Drum and Bugle Corps out of right here in Austin, Texas. And I mentioned that Genesis is the name of the drum corps. And growing up, when you had the 8-bit Nintendo systems, the games that we had, there was a competitor by the brand called Sega. They had the Sega Genesis. I was a Nintendo kid. My best friend growing up had the Sega Genesis. They had Mortal Kombat with the blood, and Nintendo had it with sweat. Yeah, Nintendo was like the PG, if you're lucky, PG-13, and Sega Genesis said, no, we're going all the way. We're going R. We're going R-rated. So we had best of both worlds. The Nintendo, we had the Genesis. And I said, if I was at Genesis, I would play the Sega startup sound as my sound check. Sega! And I put out the call to Genesis Nation. I said last episode, you know what, Genesis, if you do that, I will purchase and wear a Genesis Drum and Bugle Corps shirt on a future episode of the program. And lo and behold, last night, we get 2 comments on our video that said they did it. Genesis did it. It was their sound check. So I immediately went to Little Rock, their feed, because I only watched a few of the other different shows all around last night as I was kind of skimming and catching up and doing some sampling, if you will. And I started the minute the Corps Spartans ended, and I was just listening, and I had it cranked up. I was like, oh, I hope I really hear it. And lo and behold, we heard the Sega sound. And I was so excited, I was pumping my fists on the couch, and I immediately sent the clip to Aiden. Aiden, What are your thoughts on that?
Genesis Drum and Bugle Corps. I love you, Genesis. I do know what Sega Genesis is now. I'm sorry if I offended any unks out there. I did look it up, and I know what it looks like, and I know what it does, which I did know. Whatever, you get the point. So love you, Genesis. They are still the only drum corps, to my knowledge, that has posted us somewhere. So hey, anybody wants to repost us, we're here.
Yeah, totally excited. The power of the program. So I'm a man of my word. This week, I will, in San Antonio, go to the Genesis Drum and Bugle Corps souvenir booth, and I will buy a shirt or maybe a jersey or something. I will buy something for the top. Could be a hat, could be a shirt, but more than likely a shirt. I do like hoodies and long sleeves, but it's 90 degrees here in Austin, so not really, it's a small window, but I will wear it on the episode where we recap the San Antonio regional. So Genesis Nation, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for participating, and I will see you at the souvenir booth sometime on Saturday. We turn our attention to Lisle, Illinois for the Cavalcade of Brass. Aiden, I realize that I have said one word wrong continuously as long as I can remember. Well, I can think of two. Authenticate. I think I used to say authentificate. Nope, that's not right. That doesn't sound right. But regardless, the other word was Calvary. Calvary. I don't know why I thought there was an L in front of the V. Calvary, but it's cavalry. And then you look at this and it's Cavalcade of Brass. So someone out there is teaching me how to spell correctly. The Cavalcade of Brass. We had 5 drum corps there in finishing order. Bluecoats, the Cavaliers, Troopers, Colts, and the Madison Scouts. Bluecoats winning with an 86.5. Cavaliers second, 81.0. Troopers on their heels, 79.65. Colts on their heels with a 78.0. And Madison, 76.5. Now, the general effect score is pretty chalky. Everyone was scoring where you think they would score. We go to the visual in the recap, and well, that was pretty chalky as well. Not a whole lot of surprises. In fact, you have to go all the way to music to find anything out of the ordinary, but these are positives here in the brass and the percussion. Remember, the Troopers finished 3rd overall, but they have a 2nd in brass. They have a 2nd in percussion. Percussion and brass beating the Cavaliers. So good for them for finishing strong on that. I'm sure it's going to be a knockout battle between the Cavaliers and the Troopers, maybe the Blue Stars, maybe the Mandarins. I don't know as we get deeper into the season, but Cavaliers on an upward trajectory, just like your boy predicted earlier in the season. Aiden, what are your thoughts?
We have the list of results. Again, nothing crazy. I'm sure he's talked about this. We saw the Bluecoats win by, an expected amount for the amount of cores there. But I think the Troopers being significantly above the Colts is definitely a jump from what we saw in the beginning, and I'm glad to see that they are getting back on their track, and they're definitely, like, you can see that there's definitely a lot of momentum going here. And overall, like, I feel like all the cores at this show were just doing awesome. And speaking of awesome, we got to talk about the Bluecoats' new closer.
Right on, right on. Now, at this show, the Bluecoats debuted their new closer. They posted about it on Facebook, and it said, "Tonight we debuted the coda of the Observer effect, featuring a new composition, Endlessly Basson Lux. In this section, we use an effect called sidechaining, where one sound is triggered by the level of another sound. Using sidechaining, we're able to use drum set and battery instruments to trigger the brass chorale being performed live in a variety of ways from the opposite side of the field. This was inspired by the concept of quantum entanglement, where 2 particles can become linked together regardless of the distance between them." If I may pause for an editorial. Unpause. This is a technique Sonlux uses in many of their pieces. So in that Facebook post, they linked to a video by Ian Chang, and they said, go watch this if you want to learn about it. So what did I do? I went and watched this. And he refers to it as sidechain gating. Now, if you know anything about how a mixer works, it has to do with the gate, all right? But Ian Chang also says that, and also one of my friends, shout out to one of my friends who's in the biz, the commercial sound and music biz. This is not new. Like, this is new to drumcore, new-ish to drumcore, but trance and techno music have been using this effect before. For how long, I don't know. But when Ian Chang was talking about it in the video, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard these effects before. I don't know that they were utilized the same way that Ian Chang was in his video, or that the Bluecoats are using it on the field. But this idea of sidechain gating is not new. But apparently it was called trance gating. It's called that in the biz, but Ian is not 100% sure, that that's the term they use to describe it. And so I asked one of my nerdy audio friends, he's a fan. I said, hey, can you explain what this really is? And he says, do you know what a gate is? Yes, gating, all right? Do you know what a mixer is? Yes, obviously. So basically, it's like an auto mute button, all right? Except where the signal mutes if it's a certain strength or higher. So it doesn't turn on if the signal strength isn't at a certain point. So it's always gonna play, and you may hear something, you may hear nothing at all, but it doesn't unmute until a signal reaches the mixer that says, oh, unmute it, and then it unmutes it. Once the signal reaches it, it unmutes. When it drops below, it will mute it again. So for example, if I say, I don't want to hear a sound until I hear a decibel, this is my version, this is not from my friend, but I want to hear something this loud. If I was to be humming a sound, it wouldn't come out until this happened. So it'd be like this. Up, 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 up. But the other stuff would always be playing. You just wouldn't hear it, right? And so here's another example. See this microphone? If we had 2 microphones, or if you saw a podcast that had 4 microphones, sometimes we turn on a gating effect in the mix. And usually in the final mix down, where if this mic is talking, it mutes the other microphones so you don't pick up miscellaneous extraneous noises, coughing, drinking, etc. So you have to reach a certain point of talking. It's usually a decibel, a level. If this person starts talking and I'm talking, these 2 mics are on, these are not. If it's the 1 and 4, like basically it turns the mic on to catch that and it turns it off so it doesn't pick up bleed over of my voice into it, or again, like coughing or sneezing or anything like that. It focuses on that. So it's basically like that, except it's not talking, it's playing. So the whole thing, again, called side chaining, instead of using the level from the actual mic, in this case, in the Bluecoats case, the horn mics, to trigger the unmuted of the gate, you use a different input, in this case, the drum mic. So remember I was doing this? If this is the drum and my mouth was the brass chorale, the brass chorale is playing. In fact, you will hear it because they're playing in the back of the corner towards the end zone and towards the back stand. So you hear a little bit. And then you hear da-ga-da, da-ga-da-da, and then you hear da-da-da, 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 but you'll always hear the chorale in the background. So you'll hear this warm lushness. Probably, I don't know what dynamic level they would play that. I imagine it's not like fortissimo, because the volume, the effect comes from it pumped out of the speakers. So they're probably playing mezzo forte at best. The percussion have to play a certain dynamic level, because not everything they play will trigger the brass chorale. And that's the other thing you have to understand is if you set it for only rim shots, I'm just guessing, only rim shots on the drums will trigger the unmuting. That means you can still go and the only time the brass chorale would come out were Now that's just me simplifying it and guessing if it was set to that. It's more than likely set on like a forte fortissimo. So if you ever have these low 3/6 inches, that kind of stuff, when you get to 9/12 full extension, that's when it's going to trigger to hear the brass chorale. So it's science, it's acoustics, it's signals, it's all kind of things. It's physics, it's drum corps, but it's also electronic music. So the brass chorale, again, basically whole notes, if not half notes, maybe some moving notes here and there. All the rhythmic drive and rhythmic intent comes from the battery, who then triggers the mixer to mute and unmute at various times, thereby hearing the rhythm triggering look, it's a whole thing. Watch that Ian Chang video if you're interested in it, Bluecoats, link to it, and just watch the Bluecoats. Now, there are a lot of people that will say, oh, I didn't get it. It wasn't that effective to me. Well, you were watching it on a video, probably, right? You're watching it. I watched it on a video last night and I was like, oh, that's okay. But then when you read the explanation and when you dig deep and you find out what it's supposed to be and what it's going to end up being, you have to assume that it's going to be way better, way cooler live. Watch the video and then go see it live, because you'll probably get a way bigger effect and you'll understand it and you'll appreciate it way more. Also, it probably has to do with where you're sitting in the stands. If you're sitting on the 10 or the 15, it may not be as cool for you. I mean, that's the reality. If you're sitting on the back stands, you're just going to hear a chorale. So from a really good seat, from a better vantage point, you're going to hear the different gates, which are the low brass, the mellow, and high brass. They'll be opening at different times or muting/unmuting at different times, creating different rhythms. Some might say polyrhythms, some whatever. But regardless, it's all super duper cool. It's amazing. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see and hear it live this week. After all of that, Aiden, what'd you think of Bluecoats' new closer?
This is a completely unbiased. This is strictly my opinion. I love it. I think it's beautiful and unique. I think they are once again kind of pushing the activity with how and what you can do on a field, and what we would possibly think is impossible. Sounds so great so early on. I love the Bluecoats. I'm gonna forever glaze the Bluecoats, but I really think what is going on is beautiful, and I am so excited to see what they continue to do and how they're gonna wrap this all up, especially for finals. It's just amazing. And if you haven't watched it, try to find it, find a way, or just tune in Flow Marching, something. It's amazing.
It's obviously what the Bluecoats and Ryan Lott, Son Lux have been building up to the last few years when they announced their residency and their collaboration and all that stuff. So this is the culmination of that. I'm very excited because it looks like it truly is a collab in every sense of the word of writing and working together. And I want you to use things that I use on my electronic music or my pop music, whatever you refer to it. I wanted to do this as opposed to I'm just going to arrange this and make it work. Like, super cool. It's super exciting. And one last thing that Ian Chang gave an analogy in case all of the stuff I just talked about or all the stuff you read is very confusing. He said, imagine a saxophone, one saxophone, but it's being played by two different people. All right. So you have person A, person B, you have one instrument. Person A is fingering all of the notes. You don't hear anything, right? It isn't until person B blows through the saxophone that you hear the notes. So in essence, in this particular analogy, the brass, they're fingering all the notes. The battery, they're blowing through the instrument so you can actually hear it. So a whole lot of crazy, a whole lot of physics and math and electronics and fantastic stuff. Consider me excited. This is just like kinetic noise, just like a lot of the stuff that they've been doing over the last number of years. Incredibly groundbreaking and innovative for the activity. And to me, that is exactly what a champion in a championship show should be doing, is pushing the activity. And Bluecoats they're pushing it. They're pushing it. Of course, some people don't like that, but that's okay. They probably also didn't like Superman, the movie, the new one, the one that just came out. It's great. And then we turn to the West Coast for the drum corps at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. And we had some interesting results. The rankings, maybe like, well, what's so interesting about that? Let's talk about it, shall we? We had 8 world-class drum corps there. In order: Boston Crusaders, Blue Devils, Santa Clara Vanguard, Mandarins, Blue Knights, Pacific Crest, Academy, Seattle Cascades. Kind of chalky at this point, nothing out of the ordinary. But it's when we get into the scores and the sub-captions that things kind of make you go, All right, Boston won with an 86.75. Blue Devils in second with an 85.25. Vanguard in third with an 85. Very, very close. Maybe setting up some West Coast drama for later in the season. I think the West Coast drama takes place in San Antonio. But let's break down the recap and find some of those little all right. We start with Mandarins here on General Effect. General Effect 1. They have an 80 in rep and an 81 in performance. This judge, W. Ricard, is saying that the Mandarins are outperforming their design at this point. That's not somewhere you want to be. We go to the Blue Devils. In General Effect 2, Nola Jones, 83 in rep, 85 in performance. That is also outperforming your design. It's a very simplistic way of saying that. you're underwater is what some people go like, we're underwater on that. And it's one judge's opinion, or in this case, two different judges for two different drum corps. But the fact remains is, if you are trying to stave off someone like the Santa Clara Vanguard, you don't want to be underwater in captions. You want room to grow. And the way I interpret what this judge is saying, and the way many interpret it, is the Blue Devil show has hit its max and you're overachieving. They're saying the content number, and this is me, the content number will go up, but it's never, you want room to grow. And this is kind of like, it may not grow the way you want it to. And again, changes happen, different vantage points, different judges, different performance dynamics, all that kind of stuff. But right now, those are two captions where these drum corps are underwater. But they're not the only captions and not the only drum corps that are underwater. If we go to visual, we look at the Boss Crusaders, again, who won that show. All right, R. Solomon in visual proficiency, 84 in content. That was third place. 86 in achievement. That's first place. Boston, underwater in visual proficiency. But that's an anomaly, right? Visual analysis, Travis Wingate, 82 in comp. That's third place. 86 in first. That's achievement. All right, underwater in both captions enough to take the first place corps into third overall in the visual caption. So we have a drum corps who won a show who is underwater in two captions. They could have won by bigger. Some would say they should have, but these two judges, the two visual judges on the same night, both said the same thing. This is considered to be profiling, where they're saying, well, like the top box, the lower box, so many judges, I don't know who I won't name judges, but some judges will give the final number and then kind of divide it between the two subcaptions, which you shouldn't do. You should have subcaption integrity. And what that means is, well, I believe their content is this number, and I believe they're achieving it at this number. I think what they're doing, it's not a whole lot, but they're doing it really, really good. So I'm going to bump up that bottom number. And both of these judges are saying, you are achieving what you are doing at a very high level, but I don't think what you are doing is at that high a level. This is my words, okay? Now we go to the Blue Devils again. Remember, we've already talked about them. For one caption, they were underwater. We go to Color Guard. Color Guard, they were second in both subcaptions. Great, good for them. In 86 in content, in 87 in achievement, outperforming design. And then we go to Music Brass. We go to the Brass. In 88 for content, that was third place. In 89 for achievement, that was first place, outperforming the design. So you have three different captions, one in general effect, one in visual, one in music, where the judges are putting you underwater. Now, we don't know what the judges are trying to say. I know that when I have put scores like these types of things, you are, I don't want to say sending a message because that has such a negative connotation, but you are saying we need to look at the what. The how is good. How you're doing it, spectacular, fantastic, chef's kiss. But the what, a little concerning at this point in the season. We go back to the Mandarins, who in visual analysis were fourth in both subcaptions, in 80 in comp, in 81 in achievement. It didn't affect their rankings, but they're saying this is the second subcaption, or second caption rather, that the Mandarins are outperforming their design. General Effect 1, visual analysis. Now, is GE1 the visual? It's hard to tell because sometimes NOLA judges music or visual. I would assume in this particular situation, she is visual? Music? Question mark. I'm not really sure. I haven't heard the tapes. Not really sure how that all works. But regardless, Mandarins, two captions underwater. We also go now to, we don't want to be all negative. The Santa Clara Vanguard. We talked about it last week. And again, I will admit this every episode. The drum corps, I predicted to finish 8th at the end of the season. They were not underwater. They were overwater, if you will. They were exactly where you want to be at this time of the season. In visual proficiency, first with an 86. Achievement, third with an 82. Visual analysis, first with an 86. Third with an 83 in achievement. All right, and that was good for second in that caption. Very good news for the Vanguard because you want room to grow. They're telling you, look, we want to give you more points. And as the achievement comes up, the content will go up too because you're selling it more, you're delivering it more, you're achieving it more, all that stuff. There's room to grow. I would much rather be in Santa Clara Vanguard space than some of these other drum corps who are underwater in their captions. Let's just put it that way. All right. And then a few things to mention sort of were some anomalies. The Blue Knights finishing 5th overall were 7th in achievement of color guard And then we go to Pacific Crest, who was 6th overall, and they had an 8th in visual analysis achievement. So when you dig into the numbers, you can start to see why things are the way they are, how the numbers came out, and what this means leading into San Antonio, where all the drum corps will see each other for the very first time this year. Aiden, what'd you think about that show? What'd you think about all the results?
Something a little bit kind of on edge about the results. It made sense. I mean, we saw Boston in first place. We saw Blue Devils in second. We saw Santa Clara Vanguard, in 3. And fourth Mandarins. You see this, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But when you start looking, I'm sure he's talked about this. But those scores, I mean, obviously, like, Boston's on their own island. They're ahead of the Blue Devils by, I believe, 1.5, if I did my math correctly. So, that's its own thing. But the score difference between the Blue Devils and the Santa Clara Vanguard is 0.25. Blue Devils with an 85.25 and Santa Clara Vanguard with an 85.0 straight across. This is definitely affecting my totally accurate predictions, which we are going to talk about here shortly for San Antonio. But I think this is definitely something that I think is concerning for the Blue Devils. I think SCV is on an incline, and I don't think they have any plan to stop. So I am so excited to see what happens, especially at San Antonio.
Fantastic. Now, last episode, we featured a viewer email, and we got 2 more emails this week. So if you are interested in having a comment, a question, a concern, whatever, drop us an email. It'll be down here, but it will also put it in the description below. And last time, someone asked a question about Phantom Regiment's lack of a title and concept, and we answered. We both gave our opinion. So if you have something like that, great. Now, this one, I'm going to read it, and I'm not going to offer much, if any, commentary or response, because I think this is better left to the young man, Aiden, to answer, and you'll know why in a moment. My name is Gabe Kaba, and let's just get straight to the point. Bluecoats have been copying Leander High School for 2 years in a row now. Stay with me now. Last year, with their production, Changes Everything, they played Son Lux, specifically for their closer. Guess who else did? Leander High School. But the biggest example, this year. If you notice, the Bluecoats this year are wearing sunglasses throughout the show, and it seems every movement is a different color. Sound familiar? Yup. Leander High School's production shades. You see, the differences can't be ignored. Simply put, this shows just how innovative and creative Leander is. It's to the point that world-class corps, capitalization to the reader, is mimicking them. Truly insane. Coming from a resident of the L. Well, Gabe, I hope you checked in. And Aiden, why don't you field this as a recent graduate of the Leander Lion High School band? Are the Bluecoats copying Leander High School?
You really... Come on, bro. Well, you know what? No. Before I even say anything, it's all right, bro. Come on. We can't be doing Leander like this, bro. Come on, bro. We ain't like this. Okay. So, you do say that Bluecoats has been copying Leander High School for, 2 years in a row. And then you proceeded to say, stay with me now. It's okay. So, I'm staying with you. So, you do bring up great points with Son Lux and saying that, like, Leander did it first and whatever. Sure. We got that. This is definitely something to consider. I think there's a big difference between copying and inspired. Do I believe that Bluecoats saw shades? And okay, I'm not sure why he said 2 years in a row. I don't think they copied Ripple, but like, I don't think they saw shades and was like, we're gonna do that. But maybe they did. Who am I to judge? Also, I feel like inspiration is kind of a natural thing that is throughout Drunk War. I mean, if on the topic of Leander, Leander takes like heavy inspiration from many Drunk Wars. Go watch Carolina Crown 2013 and then go watch Leander 2019. You see what I'm saying? Like, do you bring great points? Yeah, but I think to say that they have been copying Leander High School, I don't know about that. But I definitely think, like, I have heard about like Bluecoats possibly taking inspiration from another Leander ISD school, like back in the early 2000s. including like use of similar composers and some of their marching shows. Do I like, and maybe that happened, but that is like, that's totally a like natural thing that people do. Going and taking inspiration from others and, oh, how can we take this and make it our own thing? I think that's what a lot of drum corps is about. So yeah, do I think that's another version of what Gabe's talking about? Not really, but like I do believe like inspiration is a natural thing and something all drum corps do. So like even if they did do something like that, it's not copying, like because it's not even close. But like it is. I mean, I see what you're saying. Like glasses and colors, like it's not. It's not necessary. I'll put it this way. It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous to say that, but maybe it is. I don't know. I'm sure like you are going to get lots of really great comments and emails about it. You know what I'm saying. We'll move on. We'll move on.
We had a long talk about the Bluecoats sidechain gaining, and then we just had an email about Bluecoats copying Leander. Let's go for the hat trick. Good afternoon. To start strong with the opinions, I personally think the Bluecoats have the strongest show this year in terms of design by a long shot, and I think the Founders Trophy is likely theirs to take. I am curious though, what do you think the amount of rained out shows that the Bluecoats specifically are experiencing, as well as the other corps in their regional bubble, will have on their competitive performance? I've heard arguments saying the lack of judge feedback could be hurtful to the design team's ability to make meaningful changes. But I've also heard arguments that the added rehearsal time potentially added by less competitions will help them with cleanliness. I personally think both can be true, but I also think that people are overestimating how big of an impact this will have on them in the long run. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Thank you, Bailey Newton. Bailey, I'll take this one first before we give it to Aiden Spicer. And thank you for not mentioning the L in this one. I worry for those folks out there who don't properly check in. Years ago, basically pre-COVID, tour was longer, all right? And it's wild to think that it was longer than you could possibly imagine based on the way tours work these days. You, in essence, were on drum corps from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And that's very oversimplistic. It was based on the schedule. It was based on where finals were, because to a certain time, finals rotated amongst a number of cities, some glorious and wonderful, and some, please never go back there again. In fact, they would change the whole tour based on where finals were at. So if finals was in, let's just say Dallas or in Mississippi, then the Texas week was at the end because you were going that way. There was one year when drum corps finals were in the Rose Bowl. So everyone did the tour and ended up that way. So the tour used to change like that all the time. And it used to be that you moved in around Memorial Day and then you didn't finish till around Labor Day. So you had so much time. The other thing about that is you had what they would consider pre-tour and regular tour. Or I'm maybe using the words wrong, but pre-tour was a regional tour because they used to have DCM, DC Midwest, for example, where the Cavaliers only saw Phantom Regiment and Bluecoats and the Colts and everyone else, Madison Scouts. They all competed against each other. And then they would have a regional or a super regional, and that would be DCM. And then you would have DCM champion. So the Cavaliers were the DCM champion for 2000, right? You had DCI West. I think you had DCI East. I'm not really certain what the Southern Corps did. They might have joined another tour, or maybe there was a DCI South. But as far as I know, that's how they broke it up. And then in the middle of the season or around part, then they began the national tour. And this is where some corps would stop, would say like, all right, we're just doing regional tour and then we're stopped. We can't afford it or blah, blah, blah. That's a whole other discussion about the regional tour model and whatever and the benefits of it. But then you would go on the national tour, and that's where you would get these big regionals, and that's where you would start to see the drum corps. There was a time when you would not see someone, like you didn't see all the time all the drum corps in San Antonio. That's not how it used to work all the time. Sometimes it would be Allentown or Drums Along the Rockies or some other shows in the swamp. Murfreesboro used to be a top 8 only show. Like, it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. Regardless. So the reason I say this is tours used to be so much longer, and it wasn't out of the ordinary for a drum corps, like the Blue Devils, for example, to take a week off. And what that meant was they would do their show, and the last show was on Saturday, and they wouldn't have a show all week, and you would come out and see them on Thursday or Friday or Saturday, and they had put on a brand new closer, or they had reworked a percussion movement, or they introduced new costumes or flags or all this kind of thing. That was not out of the ordinary. It was in a longer season, so they could afford to do that. And a lot of drum corps did this. The Cadets did it. Cavaliers have done it. The Blue Devils have done it. I'm sure a lot of drum corps have done it at some point. They also used to take tours out of the country. In fact, 2000, the Cavaliers, I believe, they either went to Europe or they went to Japan or Asia. Somebody put it in the comment section down below. It was like, I remember going to DCI San Antonio, and the Cadets, they had, they were awesome, and it was fun, and they, and they did the tenor thing, and everyone crazy, and it was like, that's the show. That's going to win. And no one had seen the Cavaliers. They come back from wherever they were in Niagara Falls, and it was just like, pow, pow, pow. They ended up tying the rightful champion in my eyes, but they ended up tying for the championship. That's like the third tie in so many years, or the second tie. I can't remember, third tie. But these drum corps would take massive times off, and they would learn. So this is not new. If the Bluecoats took some time off that was already built into their schedule to learn new music or to clean, that's all completely the way it goes. Some corps are trying to do a lot of shows, and that's how they're going to get better. I know that when I was doing drum corps stuff, there was always like, we just need 3 days off so that we can clean and get better. Because I honestly think you benefit more from the days off, because you can get better. You can take the judges' comments, you can implement them if necessary, or change, make water, make easier, make it harder, whatever. You need that time to learn it and digest it and then perfect it. You can't do that if you're doing a show 3 days out of the week and you're traveling 3 days out of the week and you have one rest day. You got to sleep. You got to do your laundry, right? And you got to do shows. Now, do these added days negatively impact the Bluecoats? I don't believe so, because they were supposed to do that Whitewater show. It got rained out. And then they came out and did the show and popped that 82 or 83, the highest number for whatever. All right, they did that. And then they got rained out again, and then they just had a show, and they popped an 86.5, right? Is that what it was? When you are at the level and the tier where the Bluecoats are right now, and I'll let y'all decide how big that tier is, but it's obviously a select amount of drum corps. Both things are beneficial, rehearsal and competition. You want the judges' results. You want their input. You want to know what they have to say. And all that's important, but you also kind of know how the game works. When you're a designer at that level, you see what you need to change. You hear what needs to be better. Like, you know all these things. You have so many eyes and ears. You get a lot of input. Yes, you want the judges' input, especially from those that you know you will see at finals. I'm not saying that drum corps will ignore or just disregard commentary from judges that are new or judges that they know they will not see on finals week, especially on Saturday. But I'm also not saying that they don't do that. Now, where I think it could impact a Bluecoats or any other drum corps has nothing to do with the numbers. It has nothing to do with the rankings, has nothing to do with the performance. It's the 3 minutes in critique that every drum corps gets with those judges. And those 3 minutes, we like to say, it's your 3 minutes. You can do whatever you want. You want to yell at me for 3 minutes? Go for it. That's great. I don't care. All right. Ideally, you've listened to the tape of that person, that judge, and you go in with questions, comments, concerns, and you say, I noticed you said this. Can you explain this? I noticed you didn't see this, la, la, la. Those 3 minutes can also be used to, my words, petition or steer the judge in the direction that you want them. Hey, you really missed an important part that was taking place on the field at this point. I know your attention was on side 1. I would ask that in the future you watch side 2, because we have a really cool effect going on, and I think that would help you better connect to the show, because you're talking about, it's not communicating the way it is, but you were looking at this and we were hoping this. So maybe next time, could you watch that, listen to that, hear that, and then if you still have that concern, then we know we need to look at that. What the Bluecoats are missing out on is that opportunity to discuss and explain, and again, kind of like point a judge in that direction. So to me, that's the biggest negative of missing these shows, which is why you see, and this is not my word, but it's the greatest word ever, propaganda. You see it from marching bands, you see it from drum corps, you see it from indoor winter color guards and percussions. Just today, where the Bluecoats explained what it is they were doing in their ending. That's propaganda, right? That's them going like, I need you to know how cool this is. And it is really cool. And it could be just them, like, we just want to explain it. But the fact remains is when you see a drum corps put out social media and they're putting all this stuff out, yeah, hey, this is our show, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? When you put out a video explaining why you don't have a concept and why you don't have a theme, but you think it's this, that's propaganda. Good, bad, whatever. I'll let you decide what you think. But critique is that opportunity for you to stump for your show, stump for your caption, and stump for all the moments that you want the judge to see and hear. And if you don't have that opportunity, that could negatively impact you. So to me, that's the biggest issue for the Bluecoats potentially missing these shows. But, you know, I could be wrong. Aiden, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with what you said. Like, Bluecoats had the strongest show in terms of design. Yeah, like I think they're in it to win it. We all do, or maybe not. But so they have had a lot of rained out shows, is what you're talking about. So with a design team that has lasted as long and as strong as the Bluecoats, I think that the lack of shows and judge feedback isn't necessarily going to affect them. I think that the Bluecoats designers they're likely very smart in thinking, and they probably know a lot of the feedback that judges might give them. I do think maybe this could have been a possibility with another drum corps whose maybe design team is newer or is first time together. So like maybe, but the Bluecoats design team, they've been together, like they've been virtually doing a lot of the same things together for many years. So I think the idea of saying that they may possibly be affected by not having as many shows as everyone else because they keep getting rained out, I don't think that is necessarily going to negatively affect them. But I do see both arguments, obviously. But yeah, personally, I don't think that's going to happen with a design team such as the Bluecoats. But yeah, maybe with a lower level drum corps who probably needs more judge feedback to make sure that what they're doing is setting them up for success. But yeah, I'm not overly worried about it. I think they got it pretty figured out.
Awesome. Again, if you have any questions or topics you want us to talk about or anything like that, good ones, serious ones, drop us an email, send it to us, let us know. We'll try our best to work it into a future episode of the program. It's Texas week. We have a lot of shows in the Texas area, but it all comes together on Saturday for the DCI Southwestern or Southwest Regional at the Alamo Dome. I will be there again. Aiden will be there. We'll be there. We'd love to talk to y'all. We'd love to meet y'all. And again, that's where I'll be buying my Genesis Drum and Bugle Corps shirt. But we have some predictions. And unlike previous episodes, I'm going to go first. I have no idea what the TAP is going to be for this Saturday or the TAPAS will be. But for me, this is how I think it's going to come out. And these might be a little different than how I would put them for the end of the season. But again, these are my San Antonio predictions. No surprises. Bluecoats are going to win. I think Bluecoats have a 92% chance of going undefeated. I think there could be a slip up. If there is a slip up, it could be San Antonio. I don't think so. I think Blue's in first. I think Boston is in second. I think at San Antonio, Blue Devils are third place. And I think that's the last time they beat Vanguard head to head. I think Vanguard's in fourth at that one. And I'm not saying Vanguard doesn't beat Blue Devils before that, but I think at San Antonio, Blue Devils will be over Vanguard. I see a crazy world where the power of Texas high school band propels the Carolina Crown to fifth place over the Phantom Regiment in sixth place. I see, similar to last year, where there's some jockeying back and forth. I think Crown finishes in fifth. I think Phantom finishes in sixth. Get to the Mandarins. On Mandarins Island, they have planted their flag firmly in seventh place, but be careful because doth I see a pirate ship in the distance. That would work really well if it was the Madison Scouts, but in this case, it's the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers Drum and Bugle Corps in eighth. I think they get closer than the Mandarins would like to them in eighth place. Cavaliers in eighth. I think the Blue Stars finish off in ninth place. That one I'm a little apprehensive about because I think a surging troop who I have finishing in 10th could very well mess up my thoughts and put the Blue Stars in 10th. But right now, Blue Stars in 9th, Troopers in 10th. I see the Colts in 11th place in San Antonio. And apologies to the men and women in green. I see the Blue Knights Drum and Bugle Corps in 12th place in San Antonio, thereby being what we would say a top 12 finalist based on the Southwest regional results. It's not when I apologize to Matt. Just look, I freely admit my bias. All right, you're right. Madison Scouts, Cavaliers. You'll never. Who do you think my third favorite drum corps is? The answer would surprise you. Maybe. Put it in the comment section down below. Aiden, what are your totally accurate Aiden San Antonio predictions? Give it to us.
My people, it is time to tap in to these totally accurate predictions. Yes, TAP, totally accurate predictions, or in this case, TAPSA, total, or TASAP, totally accurate San Antonio predictions. So, for those of you who don't know, these are my totally accurate predictions. I say that in quotes because they're likely severely incorrect. And that's okay. That's why they're totally accurate. They're totally wishful. They're definitely wishful predictions. Do I have some logic and reasoning behind it? Maybe. Well, are people going to disagree with me? Most likely. So we're just gonna get straight to it. I'm just gonna do first place, Blue Coats. You know, we know it's coming. We know what's going on. Second place, Boston Crusaders. These two, you know, like that's not changing. I don't think this is gonna change all the way until the end, or maybe it will. Maybe Boston continues on their uprise and they take over Blue Coats. But the odds of that happening at San Antonio, personally, I don't think that's gonna happen. Third place, the Santa Clara Vanguard. I had to say it. Santa Clara Vanguard in third. Vanguard in three. You know what I'm saying? Like, which that does put fourth place to the Blue Devils. I just say my thing on the wall. Look, you see, essentially why I'm saying this is, I think, dude, they're only behind. Santa Clara Vanguard is only behind by 0.25. Dude, that's like one extra guy has their feet in time, you know? Like that's one less guy cracking it up. Like that, literally anything can change that. I think that is incredibly close. Anything could happen. Guys, it appears that the Blue Devils got my computer as soon as I announced that they were getting what I say they were getting. Yeah, as soon as I announced that they were getting fourth, my computer died. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't appear. They got me. All right. But we're back. My computer, we're plugged in. You know what I'm saying? I still got the Blue Devils in fourth. You know, in fifth place, got the Phantom Regiment. We saw they overtook Carolina Crown. I don't think that's going to change. I think from now on we're going to see I think that's what it's going to be. And I already said it. Sixth place, Carolina Crown. That's what it's going to be. Phantom Regiment, they're going to continue to do great. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Seventh place goes to the Mandarins. I think they're still on their own island here. Like I think that they got that seventh place. Great place to be. I think it's going to keep happening. Eighth place, the Blue Stars. I can see that happening. Ninth place, I have the Cavaliers. I can see the Cavaliers being eighth, you know. I could see the Blue Stars being ninth, you know what I'm saying? 10th place, I see the Troopers. I think they're doing a lot of great things. I think they're still going. They're going strong. They have a lot of potential here. 11th place, I say Colts. I really like the Colts show. I like what they got going for them. I think they're going to be in 11th at San Antonio. 12th place, this one was just a draw, you know. I just kind of, you know, scrolled through and I'm going to say the Blue Knights in 12th. And that's going to make a lot of people maybe a little angry. I think they may get 12th. I also think that they may not get 12th. See that loophole? But I think, dude, I just love the Blue Knights. I love what they're doing. I love everything about it. It's just, I like it a lot. I think it has a lot of potential. I think a lot of other people would agree with me that it has a lot of potential. I think they, you know, they got their lines going up. Their graph is going up. Like, I think they are going to be in 12th, and I think they are definitely going to be in finals as well.
Wow. I am shocked, whelmed, one of the two based on what you just said. Exciting stuff. All right, as we get to the end of this episode, do you have any Spicer shout outs for us?
Thank you for tuning in to the program. I have to record a thumbnail for Daniel right now, and I'm gonna figure out what I need to do.
All right. It's the end of the program. A little bit long because I got a little bit nerdy on the BLUECOATS sidechain gating, and then we had 2 emails to answer. I like this kind of stuff. We want the community to be involved. We want them to take part in this in whatever way that we can. I don't want to say an overly positive manner, because I know for me, I learn a lot from the criticism. I learn a lot from the negative, right? But at the same time, one thing that I know we want to do here is not punch down. We'll punch up, but not punch down. And that's why you'll find that a lot of the comments that are more constructive based tend to be more for the adults, tend to be more about the product and less about the performer. Because the performers are doing the best they can. They're hot, they're sweaty, they're tired, they're far from home, they're tired of eating, they want to have McDonald's, they want to have, though, I mean, I'm sure these kids are door dashing food every night. But regardless, it takes a lot for these kids to go out there, and I call them kids because they are all young enough to be my child at this point. They all go out there and give it their all, and they're doing what they're given, all right? The mistakes are by the adults, right? And I say mistakes because these are the choices that we make when it comes to that. But, sometimes, we try to find the positive in a lot of what we can, but also it's like, there are some things. So send us some emails. We want this community to keep going and keep growing. Thank you for watching the program here at General Effect Media. Find us later this week in San Antonio at the Aladome, and we will see you at the next episode. I need a thumbnail. Let's see. What is Aiden's thumbnail going to be? Here we go. 3, 2, 1.